Hello, Donna here. Welcome to my channel, Transcending Trauma. My channel, I just want to let you know what it's about and set the intention here. But I am someone that has lived through some hard traumatic events, have been diagnosed with PTSD, and have done a lot of overcoming, a lot of work on myself, and yet still, today I want to talk about brain dysregulation, and still it can happen. And so, my intentions here are to share my healing journey, hope to bring validation to others that have lived through traumatic things, talk about some of my experiences with therapy, different modalities I've learned about learning about the nervous system, about neurochemistry in the brain, and just trying to help. So I got sort of attacked the other day by someone, which like what I'm going to talk about today, like using the reflection, of what happened to be aware that, wow, that was a brain dysregulation. And I had forgotten so much of what they're like because my brain dysregulation from the abuse used to be like very overwhelming. And I'll get into a little bit about what that is. I have learned a lot about like emotional healing in some of my past videos. I can't remember which one at this moment, but I'll just say real quick about like learning how to really work with the intensity of my emotions, and no shame there. If you have intense emotions after living through abuse, that is normal. You didn't ask for them. The amygdala, the emotional part of the brain, becomes more reactive because it wants you to notice things quicker, and make them more intense so you don't repeat. So yet the brain also repeats things because they're familiar and can sometimes repeat unhealthy things. So, watching those patterns, like really, I think it's really amazing to think of your brain, which I was trying to say in my other video that the person like called me like all sorts of names for and did a bunch of shaming. I was saying that no therapist, no one on the outside knows better than the evolutionary creation inside of this brain. That I like to think of my brain as not me, it's a part of my body, it's part of the nervous system, and it does what nervous systems do. So, like, I am not going to shame myself for natural processes, especially. You could say, well, it's not natural when the brain gets dysregulated, but it is natural for it to get dysregulated after having lived through abuse. So I always take the self-compassion route. I'm not going to shame myself for anything, even when the brain sends dysregulation or negative thoughts. It's actually always trying to protect you. Even that vicious inner critic is there. If you ever have a dialogue with your inner critic, try it and ask it why it's being mean to you, and you'll find out it is trying to protect you from something. So, the brain just it sends natural bioprocesses, natural neurochemical processes. It is how it is. There is no shaming a human being for having a nervous system that responds to environment and experiences. It's how it is. You're not consciously choosing it any more than you're consciously choosing to take a breath right now. I mean, you can consciously choose to breathe and change your breathing pattern, but like right now, I'm breathing while I'm talking without my consciousness. It's the autonomic nervous system. And, like the blood pumping, my heart pumping through my body, not my conscious choice. It's just happening automatically. So just want to clear that up. Not some egotistical person here trying to say that I'm wiser than anyone. My nervous system is wise by default. Everyone's is. It makes automatic choices. All right. So to clear that up, no one, no one is going to call me names anymore. I am definitely done with that. Will not stay connected to people that don't. If you misunderstand someone, get curious, ask questions, don't accuse or name call. That will not get engagement with me anymore. I will just delete comments like that. All right, sorry for that little segue, but right there, when we live through abuse, we tend to placate. to create safety and tend to, try to really seek understanding because obviously when someone's being abusive to you, you feel really misunderstood, So, because it's like the brain can't wrap its head around being mistreated like that. So, you know, um, just bring in your awareness, like about like the automatic behaviors and like to placate or, beg for understanding from someone that is being difficult with you. They just need to go regulate their own nervous system and come back when they can have executive state function, reflection, and talking. So, all right, I just wanted to talk about dysregulation a little bit, like where the saying I you can't see the forest for the trees. And like that came up for me about dysregulation. I'm like, that really feels like not being able to see the forest for the trees. And that saying, I looked it up, means being too involved in the details. And of course, that's a survival state. I mean, think about it like when you're in survival state, it's very little of the executive function, which is the prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain that has the reasoning and the logic. It's about survival. So it takes in everything. Like if you've ever been in a car accident or something traumatic, you'll know that you absorb your environment insanely. You notice everything. I remember being inside of an office somewhere during a traumatic moment, and the click of the click of the clock on the wall was so loud. Like my senses were so heightened. It was like tick, tick. So of course, you can't see the forest for the trees. You're extremely involved in every detail because the brain is doing this to create safety. Again, the brain is wise, not saying I'm so wise. The brain just automatically knows to absorb the environment to create safety. Okay, I don't feel safe. What's going on? Like it just automatically takes it all in. So there's three different brain states, which are the survival state, which I was just talking about, which is the saying, am I safe? And the only way to soothe that is to create safety. That comes from the brainstem. Then you have the emotional state, which is the limbic, a little bit higher up in the brain. And that is, am I loved? The only way to soothe that is through connection. And then there's the prefrontal lobes, the executive state, which is what can I learn from this? This is where we can reflect. By the way, the prefrontal lobe is not fully online until the age of 25. That's why children don't have a lot of logic. So, like, shaming them for not understanding something is like shaming them for not having, natural brain development yet. It's like an awful thing to do. So, like, even about you, like, so this last little trigger I went through, like, recognizing that it was a brain dysregulation. So I went deep into the brainstem where I felt unsafe because I felt attacked by this person. So then I did seek safety. So, like, what can we do to create safety for ourselves? I was looking up some of these models, and it's a conscious discipline. It says safety, connection, problem solving. So, like, one, first of all, recognizing it is so hard to see the forest for the trees when you're in dysregulation. It really is. But when you start feeling really helpless, like very young and very hyper attuned to your surroundings, just let yourself know, let that front cortex know, oh, I'm in a survival state. So what does survival state need? Survival state needs safety. So how can you bring safety? It's like maybe disengaging with someone that's causing feeling like the survival state to get activated. Breathing is a great way. It's very hard to breathe sometimes, like to do like, oh, let's just sit down in meditation when you're in fight or flight. Not really. You might want to go for a brisk walk or a run. Do pay attention to your breathing. You may notice, like during dysregulation, what happens is the CO2, what's the other one, versus the oxygen get really off. So you get you're kind of like, think about it when you're like in shock or you kind of hold your breath. You're like, so just reminding yourself to breathe, So just like try to practice some belly breathing. I know it's hard because we can hyperventilate during survival states. It's to get that stuff going, but maybe run it out a little, take a brisk walk, and then try to do some breathing, remind yourself to breathe. Like remind yourself mostly to exhale because we tend to over inhale during feelings of unsafety. So remind yourself the long exhale. Just say, okay, this feels like a survival state is being kicked in and I need safety. So long exhale. Because when your body is feeling tension, there's three nerves that go from the body to the brain and only two that go from the brain to the body. Everyone thinks it's your thoughts that create everything. There's a lot of like the armoring in the body and tenseness in the body is sending messages to the brain you're not safe. So like paying attention to like how you're like holding yourself. Like, your shoulders might start to tense up, I know, I'm like this, and then you're sending your brain messages that you're not safe. So try to like relax the shoulders, You might, like I said, have to get that energy out first. All right, there's two more. I don't want the phone to end abruptly again. But then there's the emotional, which is the limbic brain. So when you get your emotional state triggered, you need to feel that you're loved. You need to feel connection. This can be so hard after abuse because we can have a hard time trusting others. So we have a hard time forming relationships and a hard time getting close to people. But like, I mean, one, when you're not dysregulated, where you're not in the emotional state of, am I loved? Because that's how you can seek unhealthy relationships too. You'll take any, like crappy childhood fairy calls it crap fitting, where you'll take any kind of love you can get because you don't feel loved. So, like when you're in an executive the front cortex, which is the last thing I'll talk about, when you're in a more mindful state where you can problem solve, like when you're not dysregulated, you're not in the brain stem or in the limbic system, where you're in the front, this is your consciousness, and you can really be thoughtful. Start seeking safe relationships, look for people that don't attack you, that want to ask questions, that don't love bomb you either. Like be careful of people that are too in love with you too fast. That's a little red flag there too. But, just creating safety. Mostly groups are really nice, especially after trauma, whether it's a church or a common interest or a 12 step, either, um, ACA, adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families, or love addiction, or if you have other addiction problems, AA, or that, you can find a lot of fellowship and community there. No groups are perfect though. So like, still, being safe and realizing, I was also going to suggest like online groups. Like if you're needing some love and you're not feeling connected to, just go online. There's so many like good spiritual groups or, abuse recovery groups, and just say, I'm feeling really unloved right now. Can someone just send me some love, And tell them you're not looking for advice because that's executive function. And when you're in emotional, you can even explain it to them. I'm in like my limbic brain. I'm feeling very emotional. I just